Okay, pretty much we gotta draw the loanable funds market. So basically what this graph does is this graph shows the loanable funds market where savers supply funds and borrowers demand funds. So the vertical axis is gonna be the real interest rate, and horizontal axis is gonna be the quantity of loanable funds. The price in the market is the real interest rate. And now we got the supply curve, which is upward sloping. The supply of loanable funds comes from the savings. It's basically sloping upwards because higher interest rates encourage people to save more. And we got the opposite thing, which is demand, sloping downwards. The demand for loanable funds comes from borrowers, mainly firms investing in capital. It's downwards because lower interest rates actually makes borrowing cheaper. And we got the equilibrium, which is right here. This intersection pretty much just determines the equilibrium interest rate and the quantity of funds loans. So you're gonna mark this I for interest rate, and it's gonna be Q. So next question, what shifts the supply of loanable funds? So pretty much the supply can either shift to the right or to the left. So supply increases when people actually save more. This is when supply shifts right like that. And supply increases when people save more, which shifts the supply curve right and lowers the interest rates. Some real life examples of this is tax incentives for saving, retirement accounts or higher income levels, or maybe a general cultural shift towards saving money instead of spending. And on the other hand, we got a decrease in supply, which will shift left like that. And supply decreases when saving falls, shifting the supply curve left and raising interest rates. Some real life examples are tax cuts that actually encourage consumption, consumer spending more during economic booms, and government budget deficits pretty much just reducing national saving. And what shifts demand for loanable funds? Now, demand can also shift to the right or left, like that. Demand increases when firms want to invest more, and that will pretty much just shift the curve right and raise interest rates. And some real life examples are new technology or government borrowing for infrastructure, or maybe a business that's optimistic about future profits. And on the other hand, when the demand shifts left, it decreases when firms cut back on investment, which lowers the interest rate and shifts the curve left. And some real life examples are recession during business confidence, weaker consumer demand, or higher corporate taxes, which discourages investment. Now for number 4, I'm just going to quickly redraw the graph. Interest rate, this is going to be demand, this is going to be supply, quality, equilibrium, investment, and quantity. Okay, so the first thing that happens when the government runs a deficit, it must pretty much just borrow money to finance its spending. So it increases the demand for loanable funds, so demand will be shifting right. I'll write it D1. And pretty much this just shifts the demand curve to the right, and it actually increases the real interest rate from this point to this new equilibrium we have here. So it increases the real interest rate, and as interest rates rise, private investment actually decreases because borrowing becomes more expensive. And this is called the crowding out effect. Crowding. And pretty much just deficits can reduce national saving, which may shift supply to the left. And this pretty much just reinforces the increase in interest rates. And now for the FRQ, It's just gonna be the standard loanable funds market graph. So I'm gonna draw that. Here we have demand, and we got supply, and they want me to label the interest rate as R and the quantity as QF. Okay. Now, that's just gonna be the standard graph. And if country X initially has a balanced budget, meaning government spending actually equals taxes, and when the government increases spending while keeping taxes like the same or constant, it pretty much just runs a deficit. And to fund the deficit, the government borrows money in the loanable funds market. And just drawing the impact on the graph, I just need to shift the demand curve to the right, and that's going to be D1. Because the government borrowing adds to the total demand for funds, and we have a new equilibrium, which I'm going to mark like this. And then we got QF1 and R1. And as the government borrows more, the total demand for the loanable funds increases, and this shifts the demand curve from D to D1. And it also raises the real interest rate from R to R1, and then increases the total quantity of the funds in the market by QF to QF1. And the higher the interest rate makes private investment like more expensive, so some private investment may be reduced, and that's the crowding out effect. And even though like the government spending increases overall, private borrowing may like fall slightly, so it kind of offsets partially at least the impact on total investment. And I'm just gonna write government borrowing.